Welcome to the Back Nine Podcast. Josh Mora and Dennis Williams here. So, Mr. Mora.
Yeah.
You know how much I love Shark Tank, right? I watch it all the time. I even watch the reruns on CNBC.
You're
I love
a
that
little
show.
obsessive.
Yeah, I love Shark Tank.
It's good, yeah.
Anyway, so I'm watching it the other night. I think it's one of the new episodes because it was on ABC. And the coolest thing, man, they had these houses that they're going to build. They haven't built one yet. They need to get the prototype done. That are going to be on these hydraulics, and all your appliances and everything, all your electricity and plumbing unhooks, and the house goes underground with the hydraulics, and this fire-resistant pad comes over the top, so that like if you're rebuilding a house in California, which has, I lived out there, you know, thousands of wildfires a year and burning down acres and houses and everything else. Your house will be, now you can't live in the house under there. It's all unhooked and it just goes down. So the way people die is like they stay in their house too long. Yeah. So you just leave your house, you vacate your house, and it takes 15 minutes for your house to go underground and have this fireproof pad over the top. So all the sharks were like really big on it.
I'm trying to picture this. So the entire house, the walls stay. It doesn't collapse on top of itself. Like the walls don't condense.
No,
like an accordion.
House goes down like there's.
So you've got to dig.
Yeah, like the size of the house below. Yeah, you have to dig down. And the hydraulics take it down. Yeah. So here's who.
Well, don't you run into water tables? Or I mean, in Florida you would run into.
In Florida, you don't even have basements. I don't think you could do it in Florida. I think they talked about it in places where there might be tornadoes, where they've got the deep ground where you can do it. And I assume you can. Yeah, I would think you'd run into some water issues too. But I think it's also the matter of building like a foundation, and it goes into that like basement. Like California houses don't have basements, so you're just literally building a basement, and the house is going into that basement. So it was really cool. So anyway, Barbara Corcoran, the realtor, had her house burned down in the Palisades. She got the deal, and the first one they're going to build is her house. They're going to rebuild her house. She's going to be the prototype. So anyway, I thought it was really cool.
I think it's interesting.
I thought it was really interesting.
I will say this. I was fascinated. You remember like in that year, like in the 60s, 70s, more 70s probably, when the build, especially in California, was like the bar that was hidden behind another wall, like kind of like a speakeasy, but in your house, like you'd push a button and it would turn around, or there was a hidden door or something like that.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of.
Would you own this house?
Would I own?
Would you buy?
Well,
this?
I live in Florida, so no.
Well, no. I mean, would you want to have a house like this?
I mean, I suppose I could also just buy insurance. I mean, that's, but insurance gets overwhelmed, right? So, I suppose I would. I mean, I don't know that I would invest in it. It seems like without knowing more information. You know, I was on the set of Shark Tank once.
You were?
Yeah, I was there with my friend Reed Bergman when we were building the Dan Patrick School. I forget why we were there. I think we were to see another client on our way to something else, and I got to walk and talk with Mark Cuban for a few minutes, and he was very pleasant and.
Very cool.
It was interesting. They didn't have I didn't get to see what was going on in the show, but a great green room. It was funny because you'd be in the green room and you'd push a button and all the donuts would disappear. They'd go into the ground if you had too many.
Yeah, right. I like it. That's very good, though. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Very funny.
I'll be here all week.
All right. We are going to introduce our guest now. Herbie Lopez, the general manager of Toyota of Hollywood, one of the, if not the top performing Toyota dealership in the entire nation. And I say that because it's true. He just kicks ass every year, his dealership. And when he blew my mind. We were on a trip this year for the Super Bowl, and he blew my mind telling me the story about how many sales guys he has, how big his organization is. Because I've been in a lot of car dealerships. You know my job. I've been around marketing and car dealerships a while. This place is a juggernaut, and he just does it right. So Herbie, great to have you on the show. Congratulations on all your success, first of all. I know how competitive you are, and you were you like second by 2 cars or something this year or something like that?
Second by 32 cars. Pleasure being here with you guys, and super excited.
Yes. Can you put that in context first? So like how many cars do you sell that you were 32 short?
So we sell on a monthly basis about 1,500 cars.
Okay. So you're talking
1,500 cars.
Right,
Think about how many that is
ridiculous
a day.
amount of cars. So that's 18,000 cars a year they sell, and they were second by 32.
Right.
That's
to a huge dealership
amazing.
in California, right? Like it was somebody in California, right? He doesn't like talking about these.
Longo Toyota is the number one dealership, and you guys were just talking about the Palisades and that house burning down. So it's right around that area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Herbie, talk about like how hard that is. I mean, the size of the organization that you have to put together to do that. I mean, you have something like, I don't think I'm going to get this exact, 11 sales managers, 80 salespeople. Like, it is an enormous organization. And just to put that in perspective, most of the car dealerships you walk into are a tenth of that, maybe. So talk to me about the numbers and how you put it together and how you've grown to this size.
Well, we should start the story from the beginning.
Let's start it from the beginning.
So in the late 90s, something tragic happened in my family. My father had passed away from a massive heart attack. And I've always been in sales. So my first sales job at the age of 13 was knocking on people's doors around my neighborhood and asking them if they wanted to get their car washed. And I do that for a few bucks. And then if they wanted to wax, that'd be a few more bucks. And, I did a pretty good job, and I had gotten quite a bit of money and continued from there. And when my father passed away, my uncle, Tony, which reminds me of like Joe Pesci. Just think of Joe Pesci. That's Uncle Tony from The Sopranos. And I remember we were at the funeral, and he said, "I really want you to come work with me." Now, my Uncle Tony always did work with me. He always had nice homes and nice houses and did well for his family. So, he said, I really want you to come. You've got this unbelievable salesmanship, and you get along well with people, and you're all about building relationships. I want you to come. And I was about 19 years old at the time. So I got into the car business. I've worked with this company now for 26, almost 27 years. So I've been very loyal to this company. It's the Craig's Inn Automotive Group down here in South Florida. And that's how I got into the car business. And now working with Toyota and Toyota of Hollywood, I could say that I remember getting tapped on the shoulder to become the general sales manager at the time. And we were selling 300 cars. So Dennis, we're talking now about 1,500, 1,600, 1,700 cars. But at the time we were selling 300 cars. And I would say we were probably third, fourth in the district from a positional standpoint in volume. And then in the nation, we were in the 30s. So we did well. I mean, any dealership that sells 300 cars is doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But the ambitions were big. The vision was big. And it was to be the number one store in the Southeast region of the United States. And at the time, there's a store down here south, which is Kendall Toyota. And they held the title for close to 20 years. They were untouchable. And I remember being told by a certain individual, he said, "Listen, we beat them one particular month this year and another particular month this year, and you'll never see those trophies." Well, anybody that knows me and says you're never going to see this or you're never going to do this, that's just fuel. So I at a very early age in my career, I just said, you know what, we're going to be the number one store. And at that time, really not a lot of people believed in it, but you got to put the work in. So I remember writing the number 500 on the wall. And I told the team, I said, you know what? I want us to visually look at this because I've already seen it here. Now I need to see it here. And quickly, we got to 500 cars. What I mean by quickly, I'm talking about a few months. And then I tore down that paper. Well, now you've got the technology, you've got the iPads, you've got the screens.
Yeah.
That time, it was right in the paper. So I wrote 700. And now everybody said, "Oh, Herbie just went crazy. Herbie's crazy now, this and that." I said, well, again, we're going to put in the work. Remember, the initial question is how many salespeople we have and how many sales managers and how many finance, and we'll get to that. But at that time, we had probably 20 sales associates. Mm-hmm. And we had maybe just 2 or 3 sales managers. And we had to build this thing. We got to 500. I had put the 700 on the wall, and people started saying, I went crazy. And we hit the 700 a few months later. And then I tore that down, and we put 1,000. And then everybody said, now he's nuts. We got to get him some medication. We got to get him psychiatric. We got to do something because this guy's in the loony bin. And I could tell you that we became so successful that the owner, Mr. Craig Zinn, bet on the team. And what he did was he decided he wanted to build a new store, and which is the one that we now work out of. So we had a full total tear down. We had to go into a temporary facility. And that was really tough. I can tell you that that's probably one of the most challenging times in my career, because we were at a facility that we were growing or outgrowing, and we had problems with customer parking, employee parking, inventory parking, you name it, we had all the problems. But what really got us in the map was not only at the growth spurt that we were heading, but we were doing it at a temporary facility at the time as well. So we got to the 1,000, we got to the 1,200, and everybody's like saying, you're supposed to go back down. Like, you're at a temporary facility, you're under construction, you've got no parking for anything. But we went against those odds, and we did well. And then once we built this building, everything just went crazy.
That's so cool.
So we came back into this building in 2018, and we quickly started growing. We got to the point where we were selling 1,700 to 1,800 cars. This is a very big operation.
So Herbie, to get to that point, right? I mean, I don't know if I'd like to know if you had that vision that you'd have all of these people, an operation of that size and scale, when you first put that number 500 on that piece of paper. Because what I'm getting at here is, this question, do you think it would have been possible had you not put that number out there for everybody to see? If you had just said, let's sell more cars. If you had just written, let's sell more cars. What I'm getting at here is, talk about the importance of goal setting and making it available for everybody.
Yeah, I think, to answer your question, I really didn't think about the amount of people that we were going to need as we increased the amount of sales. At the time, I really wasn't thinking that. I was just thinking about changing the mindset. I think the mind plays tricks on us. I think the mind limits us. And if we can think big, then we can land big. But if you think little, there's no way you can land big. So I thought that the mindset and the culture needed to change. I'm big into sports, and behind me I have a few greats. I have Kobe Bryant, I have Muhammad Ali, I have Lionel Messi, and Cristiano Ronaldo, and I've got Michael Jordan. And the reason why they're behind me is because they had that mindset. You've got to think big, and you got to already think it here. And that's what I wanted to change. I wanted to change the culture and the mindset. We can accomplish a lot if we're rowing all in the same direction. And what I felt like at the time was we were not all rowing in the same direction. So think about a rowboat, and you have 3 individuals on one side rowing one way, and then the other 3 individuals rowing the other way. It's kind of like tug of war. It's like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
right.
What we need to do is we need to flip one side or the other so it rows in the same direction, and then we're going to get to places. So I think initially it wasn't the amount of people that we're going to need in order to, fill the need, but it was more changing the mindset, and the culture was really important to me because people were limited in their thinking at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's good. So how do you so one of the things to build an organization like that with so many moving parts, that's very, very difficult, especially in this day and age, is hiring and retaining people, especially salespeople. Like, how are you able to find really good talent these days? And not only that, have the culture to retain them and grow them and put them in a position to succeed. Because to me, that would be the literal hardest part of what you do. It's one thing to say, "Well, let's grow, let's get bigger, we can do this." It's another thing to have the people behind you that can execute on that. All those managers, all those salespeople, and all the retention you need to achieve that.
Yeah, it's a very complex answer to give you. I would say you have to build a great culture, right, where people are appreciated and recognized. If you're not appreciated, recognized, and monetarily also rewarded, it's not going to be a place where a lot of people stay, right? So I think that's important. I also thought that when we were talking about this mind shift and this mentality, it's important that as a leader, I had this saying that I continuously say today is, instead of you looking at it as a manager, hey, they work for me. I wanted to make sure that they understood that we work for them. Get off your high horse. Get off your high horse. I don't want you to talk from an authority standpoint. Again, there's boundaries. There's stuff that you need to do as a manager, but you don't manage people. You lead people, right? You manage an inventory. You manage a process, but you don't manage people. You lead people. And leaders think about their people as opposed to what's in it for me. And I think that was that culture that we started changing. I thought it was very important initially to make sure that this car industry, and I don't want to talk about any other industry, but I'm sure that it's prevalent in all these other industries, is that it's a little bit archaic in the way they think, right? It's like, if I'm a manager, you're going to do what I say and all this stuff. And how much are you going to get out of it? Whereas I empower you to fly as high as possible, and I'm there to catch you if you fall.
Herbie, you built this culture, right? You changed the culture. You've talked now about keeping that culture. What have been the biggest challenges in sustaining the culture and making sure that the culture continues to evolve as you've had different challenges in the business, different kinds of employees, different size and scale, et cetera?
Anytime that you have a business where people can be very successful and you're well compensated, what happens is money, I wouldn't say change a lot of people, but it exposes who the people are. And I try to have this conversation with everybody. When you come across success, or when you come across money or anything that changes your life and the life of your family, you always got to stay very grounded. And what I see is the hardest thing to maintain is the ego, the people, their heads getting too big. I believe in being loyal. I believe in doing the right thing and making sure that if you're doing the right thing, it's going to last a long time. I believe in customer first. And customer is not only the customer that's buying from us, but also our number one customer, which is our employee, right? So thinking, being for the people, and you're gonna have some bad apples. You're gonna have some bad apples, and when you detect it, when you know you have it, you got to have some talk, and hopefully you change people, or then you need to change people. So the first one is you try to change them by talking to them and say, hey, listen, we don't operate this way. And then if they don't get it, then we're going to have to change it. We're hoping that the first one and not the latter one happened. But, so it's always prevalent at any dealership. You've got to detect these things, but we're not a turnstile dealership. There's a lot of tenure here. So to your point, when you're talking about how hard is it to maintain it and stuff, we have a lot of people that have been working for a lot of years here. And that tells you really the culture that we have is really sound.
So you and I talked a little bit about this because I haven't hired as many salespeople nearly as you have, but I have hired salespeople over the years and managers and so forth. And one of the things that I've found is that you cannot teach compete, right? You have to find out whether they are competitive people. And in your industry, like many industries that have sales, but particularly the car business, you have to find really competitive people. So what are some of the things that you do and you charge your people to do to find those people that have that competitive edge?
Yeah, you got to have an eye for that. You got to have an eye for that talent. And I often say this, but you got, for example, people that don't work a lot always tell everybody that they're working a lot.
That's so true.
Do you know that I work a lot? Do you know that I work a lot?
How busy I am? You know how busy I am? I was
how
so
many
busy
things
yesterday.
I do? Oh my God. Yet the people that actually work hard are telling themselves that they're not working enough. And you start listening to people and the way they conversate, and you really, it tells you how they think. And that competitive thing is obviously big in sports. Again, I'm a big sports fan, and that's what I look for. I look for people that really want to become very successful, but are sound people, are good people. You don't want to mistreat a customer. You don't want to, do something bad. We want things done the right way. Our culture is all about taking care of the customer, and we became the number one store because that's what we do. So the competitive side of things is you got to have that eye for that talent. It's the individual that you don't have to ask for him to work hard. He's working hard. That he's wanting to be number one. He's wanting to be a better version of himself. Because at the end of the day, it's you versus you. Right? In an individual sport like golf, or an individual sport like tennis, you could look at the individual, but at the end of the day, it's you got how better can I get? How much better can I get? And that's kind of like what it is in sales. It's like it's irrelevant what this other person does because it doesn't pay my bills. Is how do I get better?
Right.
How do I work on me? And that's mentality. That's how you speak to an individual. It's not what you say to a customer. It's how you made them feel. It's that transfer of energy that we talk about as well. So.
What about the transfer, Herbie, of, institutional knowledge, industry knowledge to, I'm thinking about that there must be some young kids coming into their first job or their second job. This is going to be a question to ask that's probably not entirely fair, but broadly, how do you see that generation in their terms of their receptivity towards information that you have, experience that you have, and that your other salespeople have? And how do you help the transition and the transmission of that information from you or your other salespeople to new people coming in?
It's a different generation. So when we're talking about the new guys, we're talking about the younger crowd. I've got 3 kids, right? And my oldest is 24. He's up in Boston. He's in law school. It's different than us growing up. It's different than us growing up, and you've got to communicate with them a little bit differently. You definitely, it's different people.
Well, that's part of the challenge, right? Is knowing who your audience is, right? Yeah,
for sure. But you have some that are receptive to learning the craft, and then some that want the microwave or the HOV lane or the instant gratification. It's like it's Prime Amazon. I want it now, but there's a process to it. There's a process just like anything else, is that you got to work on you. You've got to build it in order for things to happen. And I think that's what you see in this generation today. You have a lot of talented individuals, but they want that instant gratification. And that's sometimes hard to sell. And then the other part is the scheduling. So you'll get someone that's going to say, well, I only want to work 4 or 5 days. As opposed to the old generation is I'll work 8 days if there was 8 days in a week. So you're kind of dealing with that, and you're hoping that they get. It's kind of cool to see the older generation and the new generation and how they coexist, but how it becomes a hybrid. Because I think it's very valuable that you have the old school kind of teaching the new school stuff that new school's never going to see because it's not being taught that way anymore. And then the old school looks at the new school and sees how you communicate with the world today. One of the things that Dennis and I spoke about that was super impactful is when you're running a company today, how do you have to run it, Dennis? As a media company.
Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly
right? What I said. Yep.
Right. Yep. We have to run it as a media company. And then the other one is you also have to embrace AI.
Yep.
So just to fill you in on what some of the stuff that we're doing is I just had a meeting today prior to this podcast, and we are dealing with Southeast Toyota, which is our distributor, and an AI company that I want to bring aboard. So what you have is you have to embrace the new. So it's not just the new people that are coming in, but the new technology. And you got to be relevant with the time. So when we talk about you have to be a content media in this day and age, and then you have to incorporate yourself with AI because AI is not going anywhere. And it's not if AI replaces you, they're going to replace you if you don't use AI, because they're going to get somebody that is going to use AI to just be more efficient. So how you're able to communicate with the new crowd is you're in their world. That's kind of my message is how do you communicate with this new generation is you've got to show that as a leader, this store is relevant. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And they're gonna be the ones that bring in your next generation of customers. So they know how to connect and they know how to resonate with them, correct?
Correct. I theme the store every month. So I had St. Patrick's. So I had a whole St. Patrick's theme, but it's off the charts. Because what I want people I want an experience. This is a destination. This is not a dealership. We don't sell cars. We sell an experience. For you to buy a car, it's the second most expensive purchase that you make in your lifetime after your home. Unless you're privileged to maybe buy a private jet or a yacht.
A boat, yeah. Diamond ring, maybe.
Yeah, diamond ring. I forgot that one. That's right. That's at the top of the list if you ask the wifey. So again, it's so you've got a home and then you've got the purchase of a vehicle, right? And it's got to be a great experience, because if you hear the customers of old, it's similar to going to a dentist. Do you enjoy going to the dentist?
No.
Right? And you don't want to feel that way going into a car dealership, correct?
Right, of course.
So again, it's having that experience. It's making sure that, we know it's a tough decision that you need to make, and we know it's a high priced item that you're going to pay. And we want to give you the best experience. So we want to give you a great deal. We want you to feel at home. This is a family owned business. And we just try to do it different. We want to stand out.
It's great stuff. So before you leave, like, how are you living your best life on the back nine, Herbie? I know you're just starting, but how are you living your best life after midlife right now in the back nine? You work your butt off, I know that, but you do some fun stuff. You've got a great family. You've got a good life. What are some of the things that are impactful to you in terms of balancing those things, and what have you learned heading into the back nine?
So for one, I just had this conversation, Dennis. You're asking me that question, and I was talking about this podcast, and they asked me, "So what's the title of the podcast?" I said, "What's the back nine?" They said, "Well, does it have to do with golf?" And I said, "Well, no, it has to do with the back nine of your life." Now, obviously, there's the innuendos to the back nine of a golf course and so forth. But what I said was, I would say that in your first nine, or in your front nine, right, instead of the back nine, you're thinking that life is forever. It's eternal. Right, you're never going to die, and I don't want to sound.
No. I got you. That's right.
That's exactly. You feel like life is going to be forever. You're immune to many things and so forth. And as you get wiser, and as you get, hopefully you do, and some get them quicker than others. So where in the back nine, what hole are you more aware of these things? But you realize, for one thing, is the best things in life are free. Right now, it sounds cliche-ish, but the best things in life are free. That's one. You got to be, when you wake up, I think the fact that you woke up is unbelievable. I decided, because my father passed away at the age of 49, and I'm in my late 40s, I wanted to make sure I got healthy. So to your question is, I wanted to make sure I ate better and that I did some type of exercise, but I get bored just running. Like, I get bored running. Like, I almost feel like I'm going to fall asleep if I start running. I don't know if it could happen, but it's just boring to me. And I'm not trying to offend anybody that runs, because if that's what floats your boat, then that's fine. I needed to find something that was competitive, but something that would ease into my later years. It's something that I could network in, and that was golf. I felt like I couldn't play tackle football, not even flag football. I'm not going to play basketball. I think that's hard on the knees and the ankles. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take up golf. So a couple years ago, I took up golf. I'm very competitive. I wanted to make sure I did it the right way. So I took lessons. And what I do now, Dennis, is I go out a couple times a week to play some golf. I really feel like it's the only way I could disconnect. I feel like when I'm on the course, I'll pick up an early tee time, somewhere 6 something a.m. if they have it, 7 the latest, quick round, and then get to work. And then if I have to stay back and just work later hours, that's what I'll do. So I don't let it affect work. But it's something that I use just to be able to disconnect. It's really hard for me to disconnect when you have 400 and something employees, right? So there's so many, and then you have a family as well, right? So just dealing with that and juggling all that. there has to be an outlet.
There does.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that's one, when I'm not here, spending time with the family, maybe going on a vacation or something. And again, disconnecting is another one that I love to do. I'm a big family guy. So, those things are really important to me, and just, giving back also that knowledge that you've learned in your front nine to the new generation. I feel like I see people's success as something bigger to me than my own success. Like when I hear somebody say, you know what, Herbie, I just bought my new house. It's so gratifying to me that I was a small part of that, and that I was able to, facilitate an opportunity, and that you took that opportunity and ran with it. That to me is super important as well. So, the back nine, I want to enjoy it. I read a book called The Fourth Turning, and if you have not read it, I advise you to do so. But Neil Howell talks about, and the other guy that did was Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about that. Have you heard of the book, The Fourth Turning?
No, I haven't. We'll put a link in the.
I'm telling you, it is phenomenal, because what it does is it breaks down generations, and a generation's about 20 years. And there's seasons to your life. And just like seasons in a calendar year, there's also seasons to your life. So there's a spring, a summer, a fall, and a winter. And if spring is your first 20, and then summer is your next 20, and then you're in your fall now, we're all in our fall now, right? Is where you're trying to, from a business standpoint, you're trying to create your best business possible, and you're buying your homes, and you're doing all this stuff, and then you go into your winter, right? So the mentality now is try to do your best, pay now and play later, play a little bit now, but pay now and play later, as opposed to play now and then pay later. Because if you do it that way, you're going to pay dearly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be a short winter.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So.
That's a good one.
So, Herbie, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Congratulations
so much great stuff
on all
here,
your success and what you've been able to do down there. I always appreciate our time together and your insights. And obviously, you're a born leader with what you've done there. So, just an absolute privilege to have you on our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Take care, man. Thank you.
All right.
See you later.
Here's my first takeaway. My first takeaway is when he talks about, you versus you. And it's interesting that's his disconnect too, right? Golf is you versus you. Sales is you versus you.
Yeah.
So there's some similarities there.
Yeah. And I don't think the one thing that I try to impress, I don't think people realize how hard it is to just hire good people for that size of an organization in that industry. And I mean, what they're able to accomplish, the culture you have to build to be able to do that is so exceptional. I mean, that business is friggin' hard, like really hard. And the competition is incredible. And I mean, I've known dealers that just churn salespeople one after another because they just can't create the culture or find the people that make it work. So what they've done to get to that size is just magnificent. Yeah. It's just incredible.
Well, there's two elements to that, right? One is when you're hiring somebody, it's a lot of people just want to get it over with. It's so important I used to take extra time in my hiring because I figured for every hour I spent dedicated to hiring, I saved 2 hours of problems with a future employee. And yes, establishing culture, which is another part of what I want to get into. If you're a leader, and he was talking about, he didn't use this phrase, but really servant leadership, right? The idea that you're there as a leader to serve your employees so that they can succeed. That being able to establish that culture, it seems like it should be instinctive, but for so many people who have their own business, it's not. We think about people who come in and they micromanage or they helicopter in and they undermine, their employees whom they've hired to do a job.
I will tell you without fail, and he brought this up, he was a huge sports fan. I never hired a good salesperson that hadn't played sports. Like it was absolutely, now not every person who played sports was a great salesperson, but one thing they all had in common, all the great salespeople that I ever hired, all had done some sort of competitive sports in their life. And I think that's, and it's not for everybody, just like sports isn't for everybody. But in that industry, not just that industry, but in sales, in person to person sales, and trying to achieve certain sales goals in those kinds of industries, that kind of compete is really important.
There's something to be said for competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and whether it's competing for yourself or competing, to want to do better and to want to do more and to accomplish more. It doesn't mean that there has to be a loser in a competition, but the idea of ambition, right? The idea of pushing yourself in sports certainly frames that for people when they've done it as kids.
The other takeaway, and this is just another business conversation for everybody to know, when he was talking about a conversation that we had, and that is about every company should think of themselves as a media company. That's kind of what we're doing now at Three Bridges, is we're approaching every one of our businesses to think of yourself out there as your own media company. So you need to constantly be, whatever position is, your salespeople are producing media, your marketing people are, your CEO is producing media. They're all always producing video and audio and media, because that's the world we're in now. That's going to keep you relevant. So that's really what he was talking about, and they do an amazing job there. He's doing videos all the time. Their salespeople are. They just have the whole buy-in of making their company a media company, not just a car dealership.
So let me try to pull something else out of you from that, which is, if we pull back to the back nine and get people succeeding on the back nine, how do people do that as an individual? How do without a business purpose? How do we use media to better our lives as middle-aged guys?
Well, that's interesting. I think what we had kind of a conversation about this today. I think from that perspective, rather than producing it, it's what you're consuming, right? Like, what media are you consuming right now? Are you locked into an algorithm that's just sending you all the same information?
Most of us are. I mean, you almost can't
powering
help but
you through.
That,
but again, you need to offset that with other things, whether you're getting like media from another source, but more importantly, you just need to get off it, right? Like, you need to detox from it.
Get on the golf course.
You need to get on the golf course. I think the one thing is, if you have a company and you're creating a media company, great. But for our own consumption, I think it's good. I'm contradicting myself a little bit. It's good to take a break and detox yourself from the algorithms and the things that are pumping you full of like information that may or may not be true.
Well, that's kind of what I was driving at. I was interested to see if you would go there, which is what we sometimes do for business is not necessarily what we would do for as an individual or in our domestic life, right? And so the idea of, how can you be a leader, create a culture in a business that you run or that you lead, and how can you leave that at the door when you walk into your house if you need to, right?
Well, the Josh Morris should be creating his own brand, pumping out media all the time, right? Like, you should be doing your own personal channel, I think, don't you? Yeah, like you are a brand. You kind of are a brand. So like, you could really take this whole media company thing, just be the Josh.
I just don't want to deal with the inevitable paparazzi. I mean, I want to be able to walk out of my house and be anonymous at sometimes.
Yeah. I get it. Well, good stuff.
Good stuff. He was terrific. I really enjoy his thoughts about leadership and culture in the workplace, especially.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. We'll see you next time on The Back Nine.